Hello ladies and gentlemen, it's time for AMA number 12. If you have questions, you can ask them in the Discord channel or you can ask them on the YamatoCannon subreddit. If you want to support me, do it in the Patreon below. You don't need to. Nevertheless, you get to see the answers and you get to ask questions just like everyone else. With that being said, let's jump into the first question. But first, I need to also remind everyone that we indeed are reaching 30,000 subscribers soon, and I will eat something spicy in the next AMA. What challenge should we do in order to reach 35,000? Put it in the comment below. First question, C322. Mr. Yamato, what is your educational background? So, non-existent. I finished high school, probably the hardest level of high school that you can do, which was nature science. In Sweden, that's really the toughest one, because you have I had I think 9 courses of math. Not that I remember anything. I had biology, chemistry, and whatever. Nothing to brag about, and I went to a high-end school. So that's about it. And I was juggling that school with also going to the LCS, which was season 3, and I was flying and going to Cologne, and I was flying for 20 hours a week because my piece of shit of an organization still owes me money to this day. Dragonborns still owe me money. Obviously they are bankrupt, they don't exist anymore, so I'm not going to see that money. It's monopoly money. But yeah, that's my educational background. Kind of pointless. I am from the school of hard knocks. Penguin Panda 2. What are your thoughts on the Doublelift benching? Good choice, bad choice, how it was handled by all parties, etc. Honestly, I think it was handled pretty well. Team Liquid handled it well. Team Doublelift handled it even better. He took it on the chin. He sees it as a time for him to get motivated. And I think it is indeed a wise choice. Spring split, after you've won the split 4 times in a row, it's understandable that the motivation might be lower for Doublelift. And it's even trickier because he's willing to admit it. In a lot of cases, players that would admit it, they would be under heavy fire. And right now, seeing how C9 is so good and so all, I think Doublelift will regain his motivation. This split is actually interesting to win. Beating this C9, this alteration of C9 in the finals would be very, very intriguing and interesting. The same way now for G2, if there was no Fnatic in Europe, G2 would be so much worse as a team. They wouldn't have anything to kind of look forward to within the league. They kind of just roll over everyone, and if they decide to practice hard for 2 weeks before playoffs, they're going to be better than everyone. They can no longer have that liberty. So I think it's important that you have teams like C9, like Fnatic, that keep you in check. And this is where you find motivation again. So Doublelift, clearly, this is having a positive impact on his motivation. And Doublelift has an insane history as a player, and he's going to come back stronger than ever before. Captain J Sparrow asks, could you please come to NA and save TSM? Do they need saving? Who knows? No, honestly, I am heavily considering North American offers for the future. In the past, it was not in my scope, but I am very intrigued of the coaching situation over in North America, and I would love to figure out some of the issues that the players run into. Because I genuinely care about the well-being of players, and I have a track record of choosing players based on the fact that I can imagine them having a long career because of their skill and trying to push them towards veteranship. Entropy Avenger asks, quite a personal question, how did you learn Polish? Well, at home, my parents spoke Polish, my father speaks Polish, my mother is Polish, so that's just it. Maya Loy, what do you think about the double exhaust tactic G2 uses? Caps going flash exhaust instead of flash heal. It's genius. Exhaust got buffed pretty heavily. I really like it. In most cases, exhaust can deny more damage than what you can heal. Sure, there are fringe cases where heal is going to be better. There's going to be cases where exhaust is being better. It's about preference. I just think when you have the ability to exhaust someone for 6 seconds straight, that in itself is quite damaging. You know, like imagine the enemy team is reliant on one person carrying, and double exhaust falls on him, and you just deny him completely from the team fight. You just push him out of the team fight. Exhaust has a lot of usability, and I think Exhaust scales better than Heal. Heal might be better early on in some cases in lane, but I think the double exhaust tech is definitely some dark arts technology that more teams should adapt. Dogperson9546 asks, do you think Fnatic has what it takes to win Worlds with this roster in the long run? So, you know, there's been times where rosters that don't have the best players in their position when they've won Worlds, right? There's been situations where Crown has won Worlds where evidently he wasn't the best player in his position. Doinby, no matter what you think about Doinby, he still wasn't the best player in his position at the World Championship. He played a very specific style that worked at the time, but if the meta was different, would FPX still win the World Championship? So I leave the answer, is there a perfect meta where Fnatic will be better than everyone else? Maybe, but I doubt it. If I look at their players, there are players in their position that are just better. And that's just a cruel fact when it comes to the World Championship. But maybe if the stars align, you know, maybe. It's a very, very difficult task to win Worlds. It's super, super difficult. So I don't want you to take this as me flaming Fnatic. It's super, super hard. What FPX did is super, super hard. It really requires the stars to align, both meta-wise, player-wise, timing-wise, being good on the day, and everything that is going on around you. Like, would Griffin beat IG if Griffin had less issues? Would Griffin then beat FPX if they beat IG? If they had Doran playing and CV Max was on location? Would G2, if they went to bootcamp in Korea instead of staying in Europe, would they just be better than everyone? There's a lot of moving pieces, and to predict that this roster will win Worlds is it's too difficult. I want to believe, but I have a lot of doubt. But the key thing here, if I compare this Fnatic roster to past Fnatic rosters, I just think the roster when Caps was playing, it's such a big deal to have just Caps on your team. And I think always, with how important mid lane is, I think Nemesis is not good enough to play against the best of the best, meaning Rookie, you know, Perks, even Faker, you know. I just don't think he has the power to roll with them, you know. Obi int Kenobi, EU West, what team or individual players do you think have the highest skill ceilings in the LEC, LCK, and LCS? So the LCK, I think the highest ceiling is in Gen.G and DRX. But if I had to choose, I would say DRX. I think individually they are really, really insane. And a lot of their games they're winning are just purely through lane advantages. So I think they have a very high ceiling. I have a lot of faith in CV Max as well. LEC, highest skill ceiling, it's still G2 and Fnatic. Even though we have a lot of rookie teams, I think it will take a long time before like the likes of Mad Lions and Misfits catch up, or even Rogue. G2 and Fnatic are just on a different level, and if I had to choose there, it would be G2 as well. This G2 roster has not reached its peak yet. The LCS are the easiest one to say is C9, right? They have very, very strong individual players. I'm a fan of Licorice, Vulcan, and Sven. I think still Niski and Blabber I'm not completely sold on, because Niski has a very, very team-oriented role. He plays for his team, has a lot of good moments, and I understand the conversation of putting him in best mid in NA. Still, I have a worry of him competing on the world stage against the best of the best mid laners. When we saw Niski against Caps, it just looked like night and day, right? That could have been me playing against Niski. And I mean, me playing against Caps, and it would probably look something similar. So it's hard for me to judge that, while I have a higher faith in Licorice individual ability. If he doesn't play Shen and Vulcan and Sven, the bot lane difference just seems so huge in terms of gameplay. Shard Sage, hey Yamato, just wondering if there's a specific reason why China is so ahead of the rest of the world, having won 2 worlds in a row, stomping Europe in both finals. When did the paradigm shift occur between Korea and China? So China has finally added the spice that is called professionalism, meaning the organizations and the structures, they're supporting the coaching staff, and it's no longer the player-ran teams where players could do whatever the hell they wanted, and they were basically the kings of the LPL. They still are, but professionalism is in the air. Every player now that has the idea of winning the World Championship, they have also the ideas of what is required to do so. So the hint of professionalism was always something that was missing. The things that were always there was the player base. China has the biggest player base, so they naturally have the best individual players out of any world, like any part of the world. Like RNG, for example, have like 20 players, and all of them are so mechanically talented. And across the board, it's very rare you'll see someone in the LPL playing that is mechanically bad, and that's such a massive advantage in itself. And secondly, China have access to the Korean solo queue server. They can play on the highest level solo queue possible, and they get to scrim against Korean teams. Korean teams scrim LPL teams, and LPL teams scrim LPL teams. That is such a massive advantage. Imagine G2 and Fnatic, when they're not scrimming each other, they're scrimming, sure, Origin is also probably a good scrim or whatever, they're scrimming worse teams. They're going to learn less. It is so huge that you can be in the LPL or LCK and you get to scrim both sides of that. That's such a massive advantage. And I think as long as this is the case, it's going to be very difficult to win the World Championship unless somehow Europe manages to innovate. They manage to innovate and they get ahead of the curve the same way G2 won MSI, right? They also dodged IG, so cool. Are you happy with what you're doing now, or do you want to go back to coach ASAP? Honestly, casting was a lot of fun. That's super cool, but I don't know how many games I'm going to get to cast and so forth. Casting, it was a lot of fun, exciting because it's new. I'm enjoying myself, but it's still quite busy. I do miss coaching super much, and I want to compete. I want to be in a position of responsibility. I like that pressure and I like that stress. I live for it, you know? And this is my prime years and I want to use them to compete. Do you think C9, as you expect Win Spring Split, will have a decent chance at MSI? TL had one last year at least. Honestly, right now it's so hard to predict with what's going on in the LPL. I don't know how that's going to affect MSI. LCK is also suspended. No idea how that's going to affect MSI. I still think coming into the tournament, North America will be the 4th weakest region. So as long as that's the case, I don't think there's going to be anything too exciting, because I still think the TL victory against IG was just IG bombing. Big time. They bombed, they tilted, they choked, whatever you want to call it. That was not the level of performance that they showed in the group stage. Peanut07, how emotionally involved are you still in Vitality? Does it feel bad to you that they are currently doing so poorly? Or are you in a state of mind like, with me that would never happen? Well, it's weird because we don't know what's going on inside of the team. We just don't know. We don't know what the issues are. We don't know anything, and I'm not going to sit here and talk about them. It does feel bad for me to see Cabochard. You know, Cabochard, I hold him very dearly, and to see him struggle is rough for me, of course, because we have a lot of history. He's a very good friend of mine. You know, I would even consider him as one of my closest friends, and that's always hard to watch. MoX, do you think Origin will ever be anything more than the 3rd best team in Europe, or will it always be just G2 versus Fnatic? Honestly, yeah, I think I have a hard time imagining them breaking Fnatic in G2, because I think G2 and Fnatic are just advancing and learning much faster because they have the experience of of figuring out how to play on the next level. And that level of speed, the level of action that Fnatic and G2 operate at is just something that is hard to learn. That settles it for this AMA. Keep in mind, you know, I'm going to do the freaking spicy challenge. I'm gonna eat something spicy at the next AMA video because we are reaching 30,000 subscribers. Woo! Sorry for coming across as slow and tired today because I watched the UFC yesterday. Holy moly, Joanna. She had the biggest five head ever, man. Zhang was... It was wild. It was wild. And to watch UFC, you have to stay up till 8 in the morning. That's why I'm like, I'm kind of... My voice is all crazy and shit. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you guys on the next one, eating some spicy food. Think of a challenge for the next one, 35K. Peace.